All right, let's get going. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the latest installment of RMLD webinar series. Today's topic is Maximizing Home Comfort and Savings, a guide to residential heat pumps, weatherization, and available incentives. And hosting the podcast tonight are our friends from Abode Energy Management. So Abode is RMLD's contractor who provide technical and educational resources to support our customers in their heat pump installations. So we have Justin Bates with us tonight and Rick Connaughton. Also, they're both program specialists with Abode. And from RMLD, we have Ajay Pandey, who is our resident heat pump guru, as well as Bill Bullock, who is our director of integrated resources. But Abode will be kind of running the show here, but during the Q&A portion, if there are any RMLD specific questions or questions about our process, we will jump in. But again, we will have a brief presentation and then we will open it up to questions. So you can either ask your questions at, right now, you can type them in, or you can put them in during the Q&A portion. So again, thank you. And Justin, take it away.
Brilliant. Well, thank you again, RMLD team, for hosting us today. Thank you, Rick. I am fortunate to have really great colleagues and a good team around us, and a good team to serve the customers of the Reading Municipal Light Department. So as Julie said, we're going to be talking about residential heat pumps, the new Reading Municipal Light Department weatherization rebate incentive, and then other available incentives that you as customers can kind of tap into. So I'll go to the first slide and actually turn it over to Rick there, and take it away. Rick, we did the
muted,
classic
right?
muted. It wouldn't be a webinar
Right,
without that.
Right off the bat.
I apologize. I was just wanted to speak to myself tonight.
Whoever has that on the bingo card, you can mark it down.
Mark it down. Yep. So let me begin again. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Julie, Ajay, and Bill and the remainder of the RMLD team. This has been a lot of fun putting this together, and they're a great group of people. You're lucky to have them. So as we go through the presentation, I'm going to focus on the weatherization, which includes air sealing and insulation, and Justin will focus on air source heat pumps. To give you a little background on Abode, we're an energy management company that provides residential services to the Mass Save program, consulting services to many of the municipal light companies throughout Massachusetts and their customers. We also provide decarbonization consultations to Rhode Island and Connecticut residents. In addition, we do HERS rating consultations. Like all programs, there are parameters that need to be followed. We'll be discussing these with you today, but please reach out during this presentation or set up an air source heat pump or weatherization consultation to discuss your specific situation. Are you installing air source heat pumps? Great, let's get started. Justin will take it from here.
All right, thanks, Rick. So we're going to talk, we're not going to get too deep into the technical side of heat pumps tonight. We'll kind of save those conversations to happen on those heat pump consultations that Rick referenced, and I'll drop a link in the chat in just a few minutes. So you can actually sign up on the fly tonight and get your journey started, whether it be heat pumps, whether it be weatherization, or if you're just interested in both, feel free to, again, engage with Abode in any way. Obviously backed by the team at RMLD there, we will work to serve you in any way that we can. So I always like to start off with the questions kind of on the center of everybody's minds. What are heat pumps? What are the benefits of heat pumps, right? I'm fortunate enough to be talking about them today because they've gained a lot of recognition in the last few years, right? They are a highly efficient electric alternative to your home's heating and cooling needs. I love to emphasize that heating and cooling, right? It's one system with two purposes, right? Heating and cooling for your home. So they provide that high efficiency heating and cooling. I think it's always helpful to put this efficiency in context of what we are all familiar with, and right, and that is boilers and furnaces, because a majority of us um, do have homes with pre-existing systems that are either powered by a boiler or a furnace, and you may have propane, you may have oil, you may have natural gas. Um, but again, how does this all kind of revolve around heat pumps? Why make the transition to heat pumps? So most modern boilers are over 90% efficient, right? So that means that for every 1 unit of power consumed, they'll produce just under 1 unit of heating power. So it's not exactly a one for one. They are losing energy in some form, right? And during that combustion. Um, most furnaces fall in the range of about 85 to 95% efficient. So again, hovering around that 90% efficiency mark if we're averaging it out there. So again, it's not a one for one. You are losing a little bit of energy in that process. Heat pumps are different. That is the high efficiency nature, right? Two of the most popular models from different manufacturers are 410 and 610% efficient at 47 degrees Fahrenheit. And 47 is a rated temperature, right? That's commonly used in some form to evaluate and size and select heat pumps. But still, going back 410 and 610% efficiency, that is where you are going to get that return on investment over the long term. Um, Now, heat pumps don't always maintain such high efficiency, right? As the temperature decreases outside, they do drop, right? They do lose efficiency, but they are going to be above one because they are just more efficient. Going to another benefit, improving indoor air quality, right? Heat pumps are not burning traditional fossil fuels. You are actually removing, if you choose to go maybe a whole home route, you're actually removing a fossil fuel burning system from your home, right? So there's no byproduct. There's um, new versions of heat pumps on the marketplace today that actually capture airborne contaminants, including dust, including smoke. They provide um, high level filtration to make your home healthier. They can also be less expensive to operate than traditional fossil fuel systems, and that's putting aside the upfront cost. Heat pumps are going to be typically more expensive to install, but that return on investment over the long term, right? Especially when we're comparing it to oil and propane systems, they will be less expensive. They'll be on par with natural gas, maybe slightly above, maybe slightly below. But again, I like to go back to heat pumps provide both heating and cooling. So you can actually expect to save about 30 to 50% on cooling costs alone as compared to a standard central air conditioning system, right? So again, you get that high efficiency heating and that high efficiency cooling. So when you kind of wrap it all up, we are seeing both energy savings and in many instances cost savings as well there. Now, when we power our heat pumps, or when we have a grid that is powered by non-carbon energy, which is applicable in Reading's sake, right, we are going to experience even greater environmental benefits. And this is great for us, right? As we move to a cleaner and greener world, it's helping us meet our climate goals. It's helping us maximize the environmental benefits of heat pumps. They are really a extraordinary technology. I'm again excited to be talking about them tonight. So again, I don't like to go too deep into the technical aspects of heat pumps. I'll kind of stay. I'll give a cursory look, and again, those consultations with an Abode heat pump specialist is where you're going to be able to dive in a little bit deeper and get some of your technical questions answered, or maybe you need an overview, or maybe you want um, to talk about configurations in your home, right? A consultation at no cost through the Reading Municipal Light Department program is available to you. So tonight we're going to talk about two main forms of setups, right? And that is ductless and ducted heat pumps. And just providing some quick background, right? So an air source heat pump system uses electricity to power a compressor and transfer heat using the same idea behind refrigerators and air conditioners. In the winter, it actually transfers heat indoors, right? As weird as that sounds, any temperature above absolute zero is still warm. So it's going to use that power of physics, power of thermodynamics to transfer heat indoors and warm your homes. In the summer, it's going to transfer heat outdoors. So it's going to displace it from within your home to out of your home. Um, yeah, so typically we'll see about an outdoor condenser that looks something like a central AC unit, or maybe a rectangle on stilts, we like to call them. Something that you may be familiar with, something that pops into your head when you hear heat pumps. And those are typically connected to either an air handler, right? It's kind of a big rectangular box in most forms, typically located in an attic or in a basement. Sometimes it's kind of stuffed into a storage room or utility room, but typically we'll find those in either an attic or a basement. And in another configuration, right, they'll be connected to what are these units in front of us, these ductless indoor units. So let's dive in, right? In the top right-hand corner, we have a wall-hung unit. Wall-hung units are probably what we are most familiar with when we think of the indoor aspect of a heat pump, right? These will be easily hung on exterior walls and sometimes interior walls, right? Depending on the situation and depending on the necessity within your home, whether it be the footprint, whether it be where you want to provide heating and cooling throughout the entirety of the year. On the left, we have a floor mount, right? This may be a little bit familiar to us. It kind of looks like a radiator, at least in where it would sit, the shape. These are actually becoming increasingly popular and are a great alternative, actually a great pairing with wall-hung units too. You don't necessarily have to choose just one indoor type, right? You can have a wall hung unit, you can have a floor mount unit attached to the same outdoor condenser. So you can be a little creative. Your installer will be able to help you and guide you through the process of choosing what it looks like in your home. Um, but that kind of brings us to ceiling cassettes, right? Cassettes are actually mounted into your ceiling, right? The bottom picture is a bit of a newer product that does a better job fitting between the joists in the ceiling, which was previously an issue in terms of fitting some ceiling cassettes. But nowadays they slide right in there and they offer a really great alternative to that. Maybe you don't want a floor unit, maybe you don't want that rectangle on your wall. You can kind of use it like you might a typical ducted system. And these are not the only options out there, right? I'd love to highlight the diversity of options that you all have at your disposal. One of my favorite alternatives that I've seen in recent, even just like weeks and months, is a picture frame wall unit. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's actually a LED screen where you can put your children's painting, you can put a photo of a loved one, your favorite painting, and it's a picture frame that blows air. It provides that heating and cooling. I love I just love the design, the aesthetic of it. I think we are entering a marketplace where we are getting creative in the ways that we kind of um, design these systems and how they can fit within the flow of a home. So next up, we'll look at ducted indoor units. And I'll start off by answering a very popular question, right? What if I have a central AC? What if I have existing ductwork? How would a heat pump, even uh, can a heat pump utilize my existing ducts? Absolutely, right? These systems can distribute air using your existing ductwork. Now, there are considerations that go into this decision utilizing existing ductwork, right? You want to make sure your installer is testing your ducts. We want to seal them if necessary to prevent leakage and maintain that high efficiency nature of a heat pump. But today's contractors, installers in Reading are absolutely able to discuss your unique home characteristics in the system that makes sense. So on our slide in front of us here, we see two different types of ducted indoor units, right? Compact ducted and centrally ducted. Now, compact ducted is typically more zonal based, right? Where we have them satisfying the heating and cooling needs of a floor, maybe a wing of a house. It uses a much smaller air handler, and it usually serves about 2 to 4 rooms. So again, smaller application. This might be good for a second floor. If you, yeah, a whole bunch of different alternatives there. And then we have the again, alternative ducted option, which is a centrally ducted heat pump. And this will distribute our hot and cool air through ductwork connected to vents that go span the entirety of the house, or at least a much larger area. So within our two applications, whether it be a ductless or a ducted, your installer will be able to kind of suggest a design that makes the most sense in the context of your home. Now, who is eligible for a heat pump rebate? And we'll actually look at the different tiers of Redding's rebates in just one moment. But if you currently have a system, a heating system that is powered by electricity, so maybe that's electric resistance heat, or oil or propane, you are eligible for a Reading Municipal Light Department heat pump rebate. If your pre-existing heating system is powered by natural gas, then you'll actually want to go to the Mass Save route, right? And Mass Save has great benefits for natural gas customers. You can find much more information at masssave.com, and explore your options there. But specifically for Reading, we'll be talking about, right, those electric systems, those oil, those propane systems. Now, the question on everybody's mind, and I'm a little bummed because it looks like the QR code got cut off. But I'll drop the link in the chat in just a moment so you can still navigate to the web page.
Yep, sorry. And Justin, we'll be sending out a recap after the fact, and we'll make sure that that QR code is intact. So fear not, everyone.
This is Reading Municipal Light Department right there. Already have it covered. Right, so two different tiers, right? If you are installing a new system, you are eligible for a rebate of $1,000 per ton. Now, that per ton sometimes gets a little confusing, right? Heat pumps are sized based on the BTUs necessary to maintain your home's heating load. So when you are installing a heat pump, you want to make sure that you are getting either a heating load calculation or your installer is running a manual J. And these two processes will be able to calculate your home's heating load and how much heat actually needs to enter your home to maintain certain temperatures, right? So let's talk about maybe a 1,600 square foot home, maybe needs a 2.5 to 3 ton system. So you're looking at a rebate of about $2,500 or $3,000, money that helps with that upfront cost to make that purchase, make a large financial decision that much easier. Now, if you have a existing heat pump and you want to replace that with a higher efficiency system, you are eligible for a $200 per ton, right? You are already kind of getting the efficiency of a heat pump, and you just kind of want to push it up into hyperdrive, right? Now, I've tossed a lot at you, and we recognize that the path can be a little bit daunting. It's a new technology. There are many different steps in which you kind of have to navigate to make sure that you are getting eligible equipment, right? Getting equipment off of the Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnership's cold climate air source heat pump list, which is what Reading uses as the qualified product list. You want to make sure that your installer is installing your system on either 12-inch stand or is protected in some way from snow. That is why Abode and Reading have partnered to offer a whole host of different intervention points. And that first one you'll see on the bullet point there is something Rick and I have already talked about, right? That's the no-cost heat pump consultation. There you can either have an overview conversation, you can get into the technical, real nitty-gritty technical aspects of a project. We have some incredibly smart people on our team that have decades, I would say collectively, maybe centuries, maybe we're bordering 2 centuries. Um, so a lot of collective knowledge in which we can kind of address your projects and your home's unique specific needs. Another option that you have to take advantage of is a quote comparison report. And this allows you to compare up to 3 quotes, 3 proposals that you have received, and it evaluates those systems using a few different metrics, right? That's going to be a cost per ton. So figuring out how much your actual investment is based on the size of the system. It it compares systems sizing, right? If it's an appropriate sizing for based on your historical fuel usage. It's your heating and cooling performance. So whether the system in the design temperature of Reading is well equipped and able to handle your home's heating load down to low temperatures. We also have an optional pre-approval. So this is just right when you sign the contract, when you're ready to install, you can submit a optional pre-approval. Your installer will submit that actually, and you can get the guarantee that you will be eligible for a Reading heat pump rebate, excuse me. And then finally, when you have gone through all the steps, when you have installed it, you can then submit what is called the install QA form, the install quality assurance form. And this is just our way of virtually checking out the equipment, the system, and approving the install to then send to Reading so that you can then receive your rebate. So we have a lot of different offerings. I will paste the link in the chat. Julie will follow up with the link as well. I urge you to explore it, even if you're not ready to install heat pumps, just starting to have that conversation so that if your system all of a sudden there's an emergency, it breaks, whatever happens, you are ready, you have the resources prepared, so you can kind of make a decision that makes the most sense for your home. And I believe this is it on my end. I'll toss it over to Rick to talk about some weatherization, but that's heat pumps.
Great, thank you, Justin. So earlier this summer, RMLD introduced the weatherization add-on rebate. We want to be clear you do not need to do the weatherization work to be eligible for the air source heat pumps, but we want you to really consider it. If you want your home and those new heat pumps to perform even better, it's best to tighten up the home, make it more energy efficient. The rebate being offered is a 50% off the weatherization up to $2,500. This is for all of the approved projects. We'll walk you through a little bit more on how you get to your approved process and your approved project. This is a great financial motivation to move forward with the weatherization opportunity. So next, we'll talk a little bit more about the kind of the roadmap of how we're going to move. How do you move forward through the system? So the first thing we're going to do is, as Justin talked about, is determine, are you going to go the Mass Save route, or are you going to go the route of the RMLD non-fossil fuel opportunity? So if you're a non-fossil fuel, non-national grid subscriber, you're going to complete the weatherization consult with Abode. That's probably going to be with me. I do most of them for RMLD. We'll be looking at the opportunities at your home. Are you going to be eligible based on the need of your home? Does it need a weatherization? It may or may not. Some of them do, some of them don't. And then we're going to also make sure that you're signed up to move forward with installing a heat pump, or you've already installed one since June of this year. Once we made that determination between myself and the customer that you want to move forward with a scoping, we'll get you set up with one of the 4 home performance contractors. We'll go into more detail about these companies, but at this point, they're the ones who have been approved to work with the RMLD customers. They'll come out, they'll do a scoping visit. This is done to identify very specific opportunities in your home for insulation and air sealing. These might be adding insulation to the walls of the home, adding insulation to the attic, just doing air sealing. Air sealing is when you close up penetrations between the non-conditioned areas of your home, such as an attic space or a basement, and the living space to minimize the air movement. Once that's completed, the contract will be sent over to Abode to review to make sure it's meeting the qualifications of the program and ensuring quality across all RMLD customers. If it once approved, you're going to move forward with your, if you move forward with the air source heat pump first, we'll do the insulation afterwards. If you do the weatherization first, then they'll follow up the air source. It doesn't matter the order, except for the way the air source heat pump is being installed. And that's where that consultation will really help, is to identify what's the best order to install the projects. Finally, after the insulation is installed, we'll do a quality assurance check to make sure it was done to the levels of level that we expect the insulation to be installed. And then the customer will submit their weatherization rebate. The rebate is part of the air source heat pump rebate. It's not a separate one, it's just combined into it. That way it's a simplification on all parties' end. Okay, so we know we're generating questions so far, and hopefully this slide will answer a bunch of those questions. An HPC is a home performance contractor. The 4 of them have been selected by RMLD and Abode to provide one-stop shopping. We're limiting it to these 4 so we can control what's going on and manage the process more easily. Your HPC will conduct that scoping visit and then install the recommendations, and then we can move forward. I will introduce the 4 HPCs to you in a few minutes in this presentation. We really want to keep this process simple so you do not have to go price shopping. The HPCs all work off the same price book and scoping guidelines. And furthermore, just to make sure you're more comfortable, we will approve all of those all those contracts prior to being installed in your home. As we said before, all the work is then approved through a quality assurance program. If there's any concerns, we will actually have one of our Abode inspectors come out to your property to review all the work. Once it's submitted, you'll submit for the rebate. Your rebate will be approved along with the air source heat pump rebate to make it all much simpler for you. We're trying to make it as simple for you as we go through the process. Okay, so this is the 5-step. We've kind of talked a little bit about this, but I want to make sure it's clear. You have the consultation with Abode. You do the scoping visit with the HPC, and they're going to provide you a contract. That contract is approved for the back office approval process. And depending on the recommendations, that install of insulation, weatherization, air source, air sealing can take between 1 and 3 days. This is a little bit of an invasive process into your home, but we want to make sure you get you understand what's going to happen. So we really encourage someone to be there at the home during the initial part of the weatherization. That way the crew who's doing the work and the homeowner can speak to any concerns and then begin moving forward. We usually like to have someone remain on the site That's in case there's any questions that arise, they can be quickly answered or dealt with by the HPC and the homeowner. This work is usually not loud, but the crews will be moving about your home. So as I said earlier, it's a little bit invasive. Next year, your air source heat pump contractor will do the install. And again, you'll combine your weatherization and air source heat pump into one rebate application. Okay, so we've been over this a little bit before, but we want to make sure it's entirely clear. Are you eligible? You are eligible if you're an RMLD resident customer, you're not using Natural Grid as your primary provider of fuel, you have installed your rebate, your eligible rebate heat pump since June 22nd, 2023, you're working with one of the 4 approved contractors, and your 2 projects, the air source heat pump and the insulation, are done within 6 months of each other. So if you did your air source heat pump today, you would have 6 months to move forward with your insulation project. Okay. Here are the 4 air source, the heat pump, the program contractors that we work for to do the installation. Abode Energy Solution out of Methuen, Energy Monster, who's rebranding to Watson Home Energy Services, and they're out of Worcester. Endless Energy Services, which is out of Marlborough. They will provide also air source heat pump services, as will Energy Monster, and Green Energy Gains out of Danvers. All 4 of these, even though they may not be directly really close to Reading Municipal, will come out and do these services. So don't worry about them being the geographical base. They have resources to get out to each one of you. One of the things we want to be clear is you may only use one of these organizations for your scoping visit. They're all approved. They all work off the same pricing, and they all have worked under the Mass Save program, and they regularly perform these scoping visits and installation projects. So they're very reputable firms working underneath the program. Okay, so this is one of my kind of favorite slides. It walks you through how a home actually performs. If you look down low, you'll see that the air is infiltrating into the home, usually at the lower levels. And if there's openings at the upper levels, between the top floor and the attic, that air will migrate up, pulling the warm air with it. So you want to perform a couple of functions. One is the air sealing up in the upper levels. This closes up those gaps where the air migrates up. And then you're going to put a blanket, for the lack of a better term, which is the insulation, over all of those attics, penetrations, over all the wood up there, over the ceiling of the floor below it. This will minimize the heat loss or cooling loss during the summer. It also enables us to install, or you to install, heat pumps which are sized appropriately to your home, thus lowering your upfront costs. So true benefits to moving forward with the insulation and the air sealing. So to go over again, the red lines are where the air is leaking out of the home. The blue is where the air is infiltrating into the home. And you'll notice that that air comes in at the bottom, pushes out at the top. A great example of this is if you ever watch a building being constructed and it's all wrapped in plastic, and you'll see the plastic billowing out. And that is that air trying to come out of the building, and it's pushing on that plastic during construction. So if you minimize those opportunities, you'll retain the heat and cooling inside your home. Okay. So one of the things the HPCs want to do is make sure your home is safe. It's really, really important before we begin any work within the home. They'll start with doing a combustion safety test, which is testing the fossil fuel equipment in your home to make sure it's safe. Even though you hopefully will be removing this, we want to make sure the existing situation is safe. They'll also be looking for knob and tube wiring. Knob and tube wiring is mostly in homes built before 1940. It was a form of wiring which left wires exposed, which could be we don't want to be adding insulation where we could be touching exposed wiring. We don't want any people working in those areas. So we'd want to make sure that is remediated. They're also going to be looking for mold and moisture issues and helping you solve those if they do exist. And we want to make sure the building is durable to withstand the insulation being added. This includes checking the walls of the home to make sure they're not weak and spongy. Some of the older homes, they just weren't designed, or they've weakened over the years. And we want to make sure that there's no damage done to your home during insulation. And we want to make sure that attic is solid enough to support any additional weight that's put up there as a result of the insulation. So the most common improvements are the air sealing up in the attic to stop the moisture and airflow, adding the blown-in insulation or fiberglass insulation. Fiberglass would mostly be added to your attic. Cellulose will be added to your attic and to your walls. In the basement, there's a variety of different insulation products that can be used to tighten up your basement. In addition, knee wall access and attic access covers will be addressed. So for those who aren't familiar with knee walls are the areas commonly found in Cape-style homes where the slope is coming down and then it turns to a perpendicular, the wall turns perpendicular to the floor. So it's that cavity in behind there that we call the knee wall. Those are often exposed to the outside because the roof line and the gable ends of the home are not insulated properly. So we'll help to make sure those areas are weatherized to the standard needed. Okay. So the available resources through Abode are the insulation consultation, which includes the pre-screening for program eligibility. Then there'll be the heat pump consultations through Justin's area. They'll provide optional pre-approval to confirm equipment that you're looking at is eligible. We'll provide quote comparison reports. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible for you, the RMLD customer, to move forward with your rebates and make sure you're getting the most out of the rebates that you can. Okay, so I know Julie's going to make this available to you, but we want to make sure you if you need to reach out to us, you can reach out to us at rmld@abode.com. You'll be able to sign up for a scheduled weatherization rebate or a air source heat pump rebate tonight through the links that we'll be providing to you. And even if you're not sure you're ready to move forward, it doesn't hurt to have that consultation to understand if your home would be eligible. All these opportunities are provided to you at no cost through Abode, and we encourage you to move forward and sign up. We really look forward to hearing from you, and we'd like to open it up at this point to any questions. We can start responding
Sure.
to those questions. And thank you.
Great. Thank you both, Justin and Rick, for your very informative presentation. So the Q&A is now open. So we had a couple of questions that were submitted beforehand that I will read. And we have also answered a few, but since all the participants can't see those questions, we will state those questions and give those answers, just because if one person has that question, I'm sure others do too. So first, I'm going to start with a question we received earlier in the week from, his name is Raymond. Thank you, Raymond. So this is a question we get a lot. So what is the cost of a heat pump installation? So who wants to field that?
I'll be happy to sidestep that question for sure. I never like to give a true price to a heat pump install. It really depends on the system that you're purchasing. It depends on the configuration of your home, whether you're going with ducts, right? If you actually are installing ducts, that's an added cost. If you're doing a ductless, you might realize a little bit lower of an upfront cost. I really recommend, and this is a Abode and RMLD's recommendation, get at least 3 heat pump proposals from different installers. We're at a place in the market right now where heat pump prices are still kind of being figured out, right? And that really necessitates homeowners being ambitious. I think that's the way to put it, right? If you want to get more than 3 proposals, get 6 proposals, right? And you can actually throw that in, like we referenced earlier. That quote comparison tool is going to break down those quotes, compare them at a cost per ton basis. I was looking at a report earlier today. It was a $23,000 system, a $32,000 system, and a $25,000 system. And right off the bat, obviously, you're saying to yourself, 23,000 is cheaper than the rest. But the $25,000 system was actually a half-ton larger than the other system. So when you break it down on a cost per ton basis, right, it starts to make maybe a little bit more sense. There's also that, yeah, I guess that my answer is a very roundabout answer of saying it varies. We're not going to sit here and say it costs about $7,000 per ton, which is the average. But again, it's going to vary from installer to installer. So my answer to that question is get as many quotes as you can.
And this actually dovetails nicely to another question that we got. So it says, when I originally checked on doing the rebate, it did not say that it had to be with a specific company. I had a company on the list to install my heat pumps. Does this mean I will not qualify for the rebate? So I think there's some confusion between the HPCs and the heat pump installers, if you guys want to clarify.
The heat pump rebate. We have Abode hosts a participating contractor list. There's about 20 contractors on that list that we have worked with, that we've educated, that knows the RMLD program, but you are not required to utilize a participating contractor list installer. You can go to Minnesota and grab an installer from there, bring them to Massachusetts and have them install a heat pump, and you'll still be eligible for a Reading heat pump rebate. On the other hand, for that weatherization program, you are beholden to those 4 HPCs that Rick had mentioned earlier on. You do have to go through one of those HPCs.
Thank you. Okay, so we have another submitted question. So it says, and I believe this was addressed, but we want to hit this point home. So the question, this is from Tommy, and it says, I have a split entry home. Can a heat pump heat my 2-level home?
Heck yeah, absolutely. Heat pumps can heat any type of home. It is really about the configuration. It's about properly sizing and selecting the equipment. Um, uh, it really depends on the homeowner's motivations, whether it be comfort, cost savings, environmental benefits, right? You can approach that from a few different areas. But at the end of the day, heat pumps are a viable and effective alternative to a traditional fossil fuel based system, a traditional central AC system. I saw a question in the chat. Would it heat below 20 degrees? We have testing that says heat pumps heat down to negative 15 degrees, effectively so, right? We're going to see that drop off in efficiency, but so is boilers, so is furnaces, right? We always want to keep it in context of what it looks like in kind of the true operational, whether it be fashion, whether it be costs. Heat pumps are proven, are tested to work in New England climates, Massachusetts specifically, and a split level home. I'm thinking I wouldn't mind seeing a few picture frame wall units in a split level home. Truthfully, just my favorite. I think.
I want to see one of those. I'm intrigued. So this is another question that Jay answered in the chat, but I'm just going to share it for the group. It says, can a heat pump heating system be adapted to a hydronic forced hot water heating system? Jay, if you want to paraphrase that answer.
Yes, technically, kind of. So there are systems called air-to-water heat pumps, which pull heat from outside air and run it through forced hot water pipes. The problem is that typically for air-to-water heat pumps, the water temperature that they can put out is not quite the same as for a boiler, which means that the gauge of piping used doesn't quite match. That might have changed in the near past. But so I've seen a couple air-to-water heat pumps installed, but they are uncommon. And typically customers go for mini splits if they have a boiler in their home.
And bouncing off that, I'll just add one quick thing is, right, we see those air to water heat pumps typically used for like a domestic water source, and they do a really great job of supplying a home's domestic hot water. And Jay's right. In recent even months, we've seen technological advances that are bringing us closer to temperatures that are necessary to heat a home through a forced hot water system. But we're not really there yet. But I do expect to see that in the next few years for sure.
So another good question from Robert says, are ground source heat pumps involved in this program?
Yes, they are. The eligibility requirement is a little different because they're not on a cold climate list. For those, we're looking for the latest Energy Star standard, which I believe is 2.3, but don't quote me on that. But we're looking for Energy Star rated ground source heat pumps.
Our next question, which Ajay answered in the chat, but we can recap. So if our hot water heater is connected to a oil burning furnace and we install a heat pump, is there a way to convert the hot water heater to something that's not oil or doesn't use the furnace?
Yes, if you have a combined furnace and water heater, or a combined boiler and water heater, which is rather common, you would need to typically replace both at the same time. So you'd be getting a air source heat pump or a ground source heat pump for your home, and then also adding in an electric water heater. So you can get a standard electric water heater, which works, with a little electric coil inside, or you can get a heat pump water heater, which is not a heat pump for your air heating. It's very confusing, I know. But the heat pump water heater is a regular electric water heater with a heat pump hat on it. And if your basement has a tall enough ceiling for it, it is a significant degree more efficient than a regular electric water heater. It's also more expensive, but we do offer a rebate for installing a heat pump water heater.
Great. So we have a couple of questions. The old tricky mass save versus RMLD question. So one of them is the consultation available to current national gas users. The heat pump consultation, I believe, or weatherization, I guess, or it applies to either.
So on the weatherization, the consultation is not available. However, when you use Mass Save, you're going to be having someone directly come out to your home. It has to be approved first through the program, and then they'll come directly to the home. And you can have full discussions with them during, even when you're calling to schedule, and then when the advisor comes out to meet with you, that you'll be able to they'll be able to walk you through everything. They're there at that time to be with you and consult with you and go through your home. So don't feel like you'd be using up any of their time. That's what they're doing, is consulting with you at the moment when they walk in their home.
So similar to that, our customers that currently have natural gas heat and will need to get their rebate through Mass Save eligible for the other supporting services RMLD offers, like the no-cost consultation, or we need to see if Mass Save offers similar services.
Might toss it to RMLD. We do.
Yep.
I think the quote comparison report is applicable anywhere. That is in with other communities that Abode partners with. Customers who do use Mass Save or qualify for Mass Save can use a quote comparison tool to compare systems. But maybe I'll toss that back to Jay.
Yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome to use the, from my understanding, and I'll have to double check this as well. But from my understanding, I think it should be fine if you want to get a home energy assessment through RMLD. However, the difference between the RMLD home energy assessment and the Mass Save one isn't that huge. And if you want to get a whole home air source heat pump rebate through Mass Save, you need to go through the Mass Save home energy assessment and do weatherization recommended by Mass Save through the Mass Save home energy assessment. So if you're looking for a rebate for a heat pump with natural gas, I would go for the Mass Save route, just to keep it all in their system.
Great. Okay, so another question. What are the maintenance expectation for these systems?
I'm guessing that refers to heat
Heat
pumps.
pumps.
Yeah. So most installers have a kind of maintenance plan. And it's suggested that you have a technician out to your home once every year to perform their service checks, to do a deep clean. One of my colleagues had a technician out to their home recently, and they use a kind of a liquid solution to clean the coils of the heat pump and capture the dust and debris that come out of it. Now, the air filters in the heat pumps themselves should be changed a little bit more often. They are not a high cost, and it depends on, I guess, how worried you are about airborne particulates in your home. You can probably get away with replacing a filter, maybe 2 to 3 months, and kind of depending on your situation would be my answer.
So there's a question about what does weatherization typically cover? If we can just give a brief kind of overview there.
So weatherization, if you kind of break it down into the two primary components, the first one is air sealing. Air sealing is closing up those gaps where air either infiltrates into your home or leaves the home, generally up high at the highest point in the home, between the living space and the unconditioned attic area. Then the insulation is exactly what what it is. It's adding insulation to the areas that your home would need. Primarily, that would be the attic, the walls, and the basement area. Sometimes there might be a crawl space that is in your home, has maybe a dirt foundation underneath it. There's a number of different ways that could be treated. That's where the HPC would come in, but you definitely want to treat that that area where moisture can infiltrate into your home. So you'd either put a vapor barrier on top of the dirt, or you put that vapor barrier, you insulate the bottom of the floor above, and then add some polyiso insulation to act as the vapor barrier. So that's basically what the insulation would entail.
So question from Paul, it says, can I do the weatherization but not the heat pump and still receive the rebate?
Unfortunately, no. We are you can get a heat pump without the weatherization if you really want to. But if you want the weatherization rebate, it has to be in concert with an air source heat pump. They will come to you as one check for both rebates.
Okay, so we have another question. Can you provide ballpark cost for heat pump installation and weatherization on an 18 square foot house and how long it will take to see ROI? So I know we addressed that before. It's hard to give, you know, a ballpark, but just get multiple quotes.
Ballpark pre-sticker shock numbers. If you're looking at an addition to your home or a basement, think on the scale of 10,000 to 15,000 for an addition or a basement, depending on how big the basement is. If you're looking at a floor for your home, $15,000 to $20,000. Again, these are gut numbers. And then for a whole home, you're looking at, on the low end, $20,000. On the upper end for that size house, maybe $30,000. If you have a cape with a lot of small rooms, that might creep up to $35,000 or $40,000. And those are all very, very loose numbers. And it really depends on where the indoor units go, whether you have ductwork, whether you want to add ductwork. If you want to turn a house into a central heating with ductwork in a house that has no ductwork, you're easily adding $10,000 in cost. You should also keep in mind you may need to upgrade your electrical service if you have a 100 amp panel, and that can also cost $3,000 to $5,000. We do offer a rebate for that, but that may come in. If you're looking at installing an electric water heater on top of that, as another customer asked if they have a combination heater water heater, then that's another $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, depending on the heater you get. So unfortunately, it does add up, but those are rough gut numbers, just to preempt any sticker shock you may have.
That's great. Okay, so I think we need to further clarify this point. So it says an HPC approved must be used in order to get the rebate. And again, that's for the weatherization part, right? HPC for weatherization. Next question. I had my Abode consultation and home energy assessment done. What is the next step?
So let me clarify there's a couple of energy assessments that can happen. You could have an energy assessment done through a company called E&E. And that's a wonderful way to begin to understand where your needs may lie. That's then you would come through a Abode weatherization consultation to make sure that you do have needs, and we're sending out an HPC that has an opportunity. We trying to minimize wasting the consumer's time, the HPC's time, where there would be no opportunity. If there's any hint of an opportunity during our consultation, I will recommend having a heat pump, an HPC come out and visit. but we really want to minimize the time of your time and the HPC's time.
Okay, so next question. I had, oh, we said that. Where do I find the list of heat pumps on the RMLD eligibility? So I think we're talking heat specific units, I believe.
So you'll want to go to, I sent the Abode website in the chat there. That's going to be a great place to kind of start your investigation, but the specific list is the NEAT cold climate air source heat pump list right there that I sent in the chat. That is the product list. That's where you can actually search for different equipment. I would recommend, again, kind of coordinating with your installer. They're going to be able to kind of navigate this, understand the requirements, and have an understanding of the technology that can go in your home that is qualifying for a Reading rebate.
And again, I'll be sending out an email to all registered participants with those links and some other resources. So if you can't get to that now, we'll be sending that to you. And so next question, ceiling cassettes seem to be very interesting and I wasn't aware of them before. Are there any real apparent trade-offs in performance?
None that come to the top of my head. No, I don't think so. It's a great question. I do not believe that there are any efficiency trade-offs between the kind of like different ductless units. Yeah, Bill?
So Justin, they tend to be more expensive to purchase on a per ton basis and to install?
I don't think so. You know, this is a great question. Julie, I'll follow up with you so you can send that
Sure,
out in the
of
blast
course.
to everybody.
Perfect.
But yeah, I'll get some information for y'all. Yeah.
Excellent. Love a good stumper. Okay, so how long roughly do the steps in the process take from consultation to Q&A to getting the rebate, etc.?
It depends on your kind of willingness. It depends on how quick you're moving. I would say getting quotes takes about 2 to 4 weeks typically. Installers are busy right now. Then deciding on a system, maybe another week, another 2 weeks. The actual install itself depends on the installer's schedule. So we're talking probably a month and a half for the entire heat pump process. On top of that, weatherization, Rick, maybe another couple weeks to get that part.
Yeah, weatherization is definitely entering into its busy season right now. So really the only holdup, the consultation can go very quickly. The scoping visits usually can go fairly quickly. It's then getting the installers out there that could get delayed. So if you're interested in doing something this fall or early winter, I would begin that process as soon as possible.
All right, next question from Alex. Are we eligible for the $10,000 national rebate as well as the RMLD rebate? Does the contractor apply for the national rebate or does the customer? And we have another question just about federal incentives. So if we can cover that.
So for the mass save rebate, it's one or the other. Either you get the mass save rebate or the RMLD rebate. If you have access to the natural gas rebate, I would say go for it. It's a bigger amount. But if you do have natural gas service and you want to go with the RMLD rebate, we'll ask you, write a short letter, sign it, and say you are going for the RMLD rebate and not the mass save one. Tax credits are a different story. Those come to you regardless of where you get your rebate from. And the eligibility for the tax credit is marked on a certification sheet attached to each heat pump. Your installer should know where to find it. It's called the ARI sheet or AHRI sheet. That will have on the top eligible for a tax credit. How you get that tax credit is a question for a tax lawyer. I have no idea.
Okay. This question from Samantha. We've had a quote done from a local company that is familiar with RMLD rebates, which they included in their quote. However, we heat right now with wood stoves and have natural gas through National Grid. We cool with electric air conditioners. Are we even eligible for the RMLD rebate?
Ooh, you're in a tricky situation. So when in doubt, yes, you are eligible for the RMLD rebate as long as you get the cold climate heat pump. The challenge is whether you're eligible for the mass save one instead. This is, from what I understand, the eligibility for the mass save rebate is, do you primarily heat your home with natural gas before the heat pump comes in? If the wood stove is your primary source of heating right now, then I don't think you would be eligible for the mass save rebate. If the wood stove is a backup to a natural gas system, then maybe. But if you only have a gas stove, that's the only thing that only a gas stove and gas water heating, that's the only things that the service provides, I don't think you're eligible for the mass save rebate, in which case you would go for the RMLD rebate. But you're in a complicated, weird little middle ground. I would check with your installer to see what they can figure out.
Point. Okay, this is a good question. Are heat pumps good for people with asthma?
Great question. Yeah. As we talked about, right, there's a kind of like a purification benefit for using heat pumps. You can put an MERV filter to the air handler itself, so it's filtering out contaminants in the actual intake process. And you'll also have filters at the actual. If you go with a ductless option, you'll have air filters actually in the ductless unit there. I believe that there are different kind of approaches to filters in a ducted environment, but there are definitely filters that go in the air handler. So yes, I would say that it would be good for folks with asthma.
Okay.
And I'm not a doctor. I don't want to like give medical advice here, so I maybe I'm gonna go with soft yes.
When are the picture frame units available? Can you send a picture of what it looks like?
Julie, I'm seeing the newsletter already.
That's it. Oh
Just
my goodness.
picture frame units everywhere.
Special edition here. Yeah.
They are
Wonderful.
available now. They are within the market. So ask your installer about it. It may be a little bit of a specialty item as it currently exists, but they are definitely available.
Wow. So it says, what is the typical installation time for a heat pump?
I think 2 to 3 days, like the
Yeah.
question says, is a pretty, good time frame, right? They have to lay the base. Sometimes you're putting it on a concrete pad. They have to install the stilts. They have to put the ducts or the ductless piping around the home. So 2 to 3 days, I think, is a good time.
What about for weatherization while we're at it?
Yeah, that's good.
Or in particular for the weatherization incentives that we incentivize at Reading Light for our program?
So to weatherize a home, it really does depend on which part of the home you're doing. Generally, if you're just doing an attic and a basement, it's probably 1 day. Once you introduce walls, because it's such a manual process, it does add a little bit of time to it. I've never seen a project on a traditional, typical American home go more than a week, but so I would stop it at a week. Just jumping back one subject, I just Googled picture frame
Oh, yes.
heat pumps. They're awesome looking. So if you want to look, just go Google them and you'll get a good nice picture. Actually gives you kind of the depth of them too, because they obviously have to be a little bit deeper than a traditional picture. Unfortunately, installations never got that pretty, so go with those.
So a question from Susan. Can you have a heat pump for one room in the home while the rest of the home is still heated by a boiler and hot water tank?
Absolutely. You're kind of describing, yeah, absolutely. But that's a 2-time absolutely there.
Wow, unanimous just about. In a ground source heat pump system, how deep does the well have to be? If the water table is very high, can it be shallow?
Ooh, that depends on the specific geology of your home. Um, yeah, it's extremely specific. It might even differ from house to house next to each other. You really have to talk to a ground source heat pump installer, have them do a quick test well even. There's really no easy way to give you an estimate for how deep a ground source heat pump well would have to go.
And building off that, I will say that they're like Jay said, this is a complex install, and I would go after a ground source heat pump installer just for those questions. But there are different configurations, right? You can lay them vertical, you can lay them horizontal, you can submerge them under a body of water. So, like Jay said, like it really is highly dependent on the geology of your home. It dependent on the surrounding environment. But ground source heat pumps are a tier above air source heat pumps in the efficiency space. They are going to be more expensive as an upfront cost. But again, considering return on investment, the coil itself actually can last, I think, 50 to 100
50
years. It's just
years.
this, yeah, 50, right? That's crazy. It's the system itself inside that may need to be replaced on a more regular basis, that like 15 years. But that's where you get maybe a larger investment for a longer running system and maybe a higher return on investment there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Justin, as a follow-up to that, is Abode giving ground source heat pump consultation?
Bill,
Like,
we
do you
are
include
nimble.
that?
We can ground source, air to water,
Okay.
anything really that you want to talk about electric in a home. We are happy to talk through. Appreciate that.
So this question from Danielle, does RMLD have, or are you aware of any tools for estimating how much your energy bills might change when switching to a heat pump?
Not any
I
specific. Actually, does the core
oh
comparison tool account for that?
oh I was gonna set up another service. But yeah, I would think so. I think that's a good alternative. Efficiency Main has a really good calculator. As we're going in the background here, I'll pull that up.
Okay.
But that's kind of
Yeah, I would say for a good gut estimate, if you have central air or window units in most of your house, a good estimate is to look at your summer electric bills and just say your winter bills are going to match those numbers, or maybe like a tenth higher than your summer bills. So if your summer bills are $150 per month, your winter bills might be something along the lines of 175. That's a good gut estimate. So effectively, you'll be paying, again, this is a gut number. It depends on your home. An extra $50 to $100 per month on your electric bill, maybe. But a
But
good estimate
eliminating your
is
oil or propane, right?
compared to your oil or propane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the good first pass estimate is look at your summer bill and say that's your winter bill now.
The other add-on to that is the weatherization, which generally will reduce down your consumption somewhere between 10 and 15%. So when you put them hand in hand, it's a great deal.
So next we have 5, actually got one. Oh, sorry.
And Julie, I'm sorry, with one more point on that. I think we've
Sorry,
seen customers' electric use in the summer go down after they put in a heat pump because they are more efficient than particularly like window air conditioners. So there is some savings in the summer cooling bills.
Okay. So we got 6 more questions here. So if we install a heat pump system, is the current oil burning furnace removed along with the tank?
You don't have to remove it. A lot of customers keep their old conventional fossil fuel system as a backup just in case. If it still runs, there's not a whole lot of reason to take it out. But if the tank is gone, or if the boiler is gone, or the water heater is gone, you can just take it all out. There's an extra cost for removing all this equipment. I believe there's also a cost for removing any oil that's in the tank left. But that's absolutely a thing you can do if you wanted to replace everything in your home with an electric system. And yes, what is an ASHP?
Yes,
That
sorry.
is
Yeah,
an
that's
air
okay.
source
Air
heat
source.
pump.
Gotcha.
You've also heard the terms ductless mini split. Same underlying technology. We'll often say heat pump as a good shorthand.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of terms you'll hear around.
Do you have partners for installation installment?
I will take that. For the insulation, yes, they're the 4 home performance contractors that we work with. Best if you set up an appointment consultation. I can walk you through the process and provide you all the contact information for those companies.
Awesome. Okay. So this is from Robert. It says, I contacted E&E and filled out a form. I got a call from Mass Save and they said I was not eligible. Does that mean E&E for the home energy assessment? I'm a little confused.
If that's for the
here.
home energy assessment, please set up a consultation with me and I can take a closer look and we can determine exactly what your opportunities are, be it with RMLD.
Perfect. Okay, so 2 more questions here. So this is from Alex. This is a great question. Can heat pumps be wired to and or controlled by a smart thermostat like a Google Nest?
Absolutely. Different heat pump installers or different heat pump companies will have different options for smart thermostats. I remember seeing a table of which heat pumps are compatible with thermostats, and it was a 6-page list with 2-point font. So the details are complicated. It might not specifically be a Nest, but that is absolutely a thing you can do. And while we're at it, I would say one key counterintuitive piece about heat pumps is that the established practice for using a heat pump is you set it at a thermostat and then you don't touch it. I know there's an instinct to turn down the heat pump when you're not in the house, or to turn down the heat pump when you're going for a weekend vacation, or even to fly with members of your family, but what the exact temperature should be. But the less you actually move the temperature setting on your thermostat, the more efficient the system typically is. Counterintuitive, but that's just how they're most efficient.
Awesome. Okay, so we have another, so Robert just put something else in the chat. It says, I was turned down by E&E. Can you give me the contact information for the person who said he could help? Sure. So Robert, I will type
Yes.
that in a moment. Sorry, should be you, Ajay, or Rick, or?
Let's put both of them on there.
Okay, perfect. So I'll type that
Yeah,
in a
Rick's
minute.
the point of contact for weatherization questions, and I can help you navigate through the program side of it on the back end.
Okay, so one last question. Oh, sorry, Rick.
No, just that's good. I am tied up all day tomorrow. So if I get to you tomorrow, it would be late in the day.
So last question was an emailed question from Edward. It says, I'm looking at a 2 LG red technology heat pump, which would take me from gas to all electric for upper and lower floor. The contractor says it will heat comfortably to -13 degrees using integrated electric heat strips. Can I rely on that assessment?
Let me do a bit of digging. LG red.
I would also
Right.
say this is a great opportunity for an Abode heat pump consultation. Just plugging that.
Yeah, okay. So this is the LG 480HHV. And for context, this is a thing that I can do for any customer that calls, is just give me the model number for the heat pump, and I'll go digging and see if it's kosher. LG, is that the outdoor unit? Multi-zone.
Yeah. And just Justin, on your response, so as part of the heat pump consultation, do you look at bids from different contractors?
Yeah, we can. We can definitely evaluate different proposals. I think centering that quote comparison report, we are like we can do similarly to what Ajay is doing right now, like dive into a quote, dive into the different configurations and efficiency on our different databases that we have access to. But that quote comparison report is a great way to not only give you a simplified version of the comparisons, but our specialist a simplified version. So
Mhm.
we can kind of build a conversation off of that and kind of guide you through the different benefits, drawbacks of specific systems to one another.
Yes. So for
Yeah.
example, with the LG Red system, I picked up an example. So LG Red is an entire line of models from LG, but I picked one that's a multi-indoor head unit that would cover a house. And this thing is absolutely rated to work reasonably well. I'm seeing a chart that goes down to -4°F. And for context, most heating systems in Massachusetts writ large are designed for 10°F being the, if it's colder than 10 Fahrenheit, something has gone strangely. So if it can handle 5°F, that is better than the design temperature set by the HVAC industry in general for this area. And this will hold, it will definitely lose performance and efficiency at -4 Fahrenheit, but it will definitely heat your home just fine. And in practice, what happens with these kind of heat pumps is that if they don't have enough juice to heat your home fully, it doesn't shut off automatically. But what you'll find is that the temperature inside of your house will dip down a little bit. So if you set the thermostat at 72 degrees in the winter and it's 0°F outside, you might see the temperature dip down to 68, 65, 62. And that's really the worst case scenario of, it is below zero outside, but you're going to be wearing sweaters indoors. And that's about as bad as it can get, short of a power outage, but we have very, very good reliability.
Okay, that concludes all the questions. Excellent participation, very thoughtful questions. We always can count on a very engaged audience. So thank you for everyone who tuned in and asked questions. We're very excited that so many people are curious about this program and hopefully interested in this program. Justin, Rick, Ajay, anything you want to close with?
These are
I'd just like
fantastic
to-
systems. They're great.
I'd like to thank everyone who participated. I think this is a great opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about the opportunities that are presented to you through RMLD.
And just to close here, as I have mentioned multiple times, I will be sending out an email just kind of recapping, listing some resources that we mentioned, also giving contact information of the people on here, because I've gotten some questions about that, because I know people are eager. If you think of questions after the fact, you can always reach out. And also, we have done a couple of heat pump specific webinars that get more into the technology. If you want to give those a look, those are on our website. I can send the links to those as well. So again, thank you everyone for joining. Take care.
All right, take care.
Bye all.